Hello, everyone, and happy Monday. I have decided that this week, the first 3 days of this week, I am going to do a 3-part training series about getting hooked on the true story of your body. Now, you might think that means I'm going to talk about working out and eating, and although that is work that I've done all along, and I can totally speak to that, the conversation here is not going to be specific to training your body or eating well, okay? So today, what we're going to talk about and what I'm going to dive into, and if you're hopping on, definitely say hello. If you have any questions throughout this training, please feel free to drop them below. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to be able to respond and make this interactive. So today, what I'm going to talk about is intuition and why your intuition is so important to being connected to your body, actually knowing the communication of your body, because your body has so much wisdom to share with you. And when we're disconnected from our intuition, we're not able to decipher as well or the communication, and we're not also able to hear it at all. Even if we can kind of think we know something's going on, but we can't completely hear all the messages coming through. And that's why your intuition is so very important to your health, to everything that you're creating in this world, your relationships especially. So everything, we get that sixth sense about things all the time. We feel ways, and a lot of times what happens, and I see this with my clients a lot, we're cutting ourselves off. We might feel something and we're like, I can't deal with that right now. I'm going to deal with it later, and then you never come back to it. And that's a way that your emotions and your feelings end up getting repressed in the body, and then you might experience the same sort of situation over and over again. So that's just kind of the fight or the challenge or the struggle that goes on when we're not really listening to that intuition. You can think of your intuition, yes, as communication, but also communication with your higher self. So your soul, your spirit, I call that sometimes your inner athlete. You can call it anything that you want, really, but it's this aspect of you that wants to get your attention. But instead, what has your attention usually is some other dominant narrative that is going on that has you hypnotized. It's usually some sort of perfectionism. It's usually some sort of comparison. It's usually looking at the past and not being present that gets all of this jumbled up for you, or gets the communication out of sync for you. So if you think of what you're hypnotized by on a daily basis, or what your dominant narrative is, like what are the thoughts in your mind on a daily basis that you are taking action upon that may not be serving you as well as if you were able to tap into your intuition and take action from that place. So that's really what I'm talking about here. It's a super big deal. And I really connect your intuition to your warrior spirit. So your intuition, or actually, let me back up. I'll tell you why I connect it to that in a minute. We live and have been living in this 3D reality, this 3D matrix, where we're very focused on our thinking, we're very focused on our doing, we're very focused on time, and everything is in this linear perspective of good, bad, right, and wrong, so on and so forth. So that duality. And what's happening right now on Earth for all of us, no matter if you consider yourself tapping into this or not, we're moving into what's called 5D reality, where everything's based on emotionality, feelings, love, so like a higher consciousness. Not that one is good or bad. It's just the shift in the evolution that our earth is going through. It's bringing more light into our bodies. And when more light comes into our bodies, the shadow shows up. And that's why it's partly important to know about your intuition. So since we're moving into this more feeling place, and intuition is based more on feeling, your intuition shows up in your body versus your mind. So you can think of your mind as more your ego. You can think of your body as more your intuition, so where you're feeling things. Why this has been coming up more and more, not only the shift in evolution and consciousness, but when I was meditating a few weeks ago, I saw where, and I see this in my clients, which is why it's likely so prevalent. So I attract these high achievers, very ambitious women. Some are competitive athletes. Some are fitness enthusiasts that are also competitive spirits, but might not play a sport in particular. So they tend to fall into, and I think in this duality, in this 3D realm that we've been living in, it's very much we're doing on one end. So it's like high amounts of adrenaline pumping through our bodies, and we're like, go, 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 do, think. And then on the other end of the spectrum, so we're living in extremes, and on the other end of the spectrum, we become exhausted, because that is no way to be, that is no way to live full time. You can go through seasons of it. You can, ramp up and ramp down and keep it within a sustainable track versus extremes, but that's a lot of times what I see. So it's these extremes, and then in between, I saw 3 bodies, and these bodies looked a lot like ghosts, because there are aspects of ourselves that we're not embodying fully and we're not connecting to. And so that's why I mentioned the warrior spirit, and that's where our focus is going to be today on this activation series, because this warrior spirit is very physical. And to be in that drive and go and more of that masculine energy, it is very physical. It is very I have to fight my way. I have to, conquer. I have to, all this mindset around what I need to do, how I need to conquer, how I need to control, how I need to look. So it does show up, or it has been showing up from an ego place, and ego is a good thing. We need ego to get things done. If I didn't have an ego, I would not be on here right now sharing this information with you. So ego is necessary. It's just when, hello Paula, thanks for the love. It's just when it's not integrated into our being in a way that's healthy, that it shows up in kind of this drive that can get exhausting. And I know you know what I'm talking about, because we've all been there. It's part of our human experience. It's been our norm, and it's been the norm that I've seen with my clients, males and females. So it just affects them maybe in different ways. So we want to get to a place where we can use this ego part of ourselves, the doer, the thinker, along with the other aspects of ourselves that want to be seen and want to be heard. And that's what our intuition connects us to. So a little bit about my story, just to make this a little more real for you and how it was showing up for me, is that this warrior spirit, or this drive, this mentality I had, was all around. I was in a car accident when I was 19, and it was an accident where I broke many bones on my body, including my back. That was where I needed to have surgery. So you can imagine, and I had to wear armor after for 3 months. And so you can imagine that as I was building my body back, it was this, it wasn't necessarily a fight or a struggle, but it was a sense of protection. And the warrior likes to protect. And sometimes it can get overprotective, especially if we're taking action from that part of ourselves all the time. We can't use the same player on every playing field of life. And that's exactly what I was doing. My warrior was showing up everywhere. And you can imagine if my warrior showed up in a relationship, it didn't turn out too well. So that's what I mean by you can't use the same player on every playing field of life, because it's not going to work. So you need to know when you're going into the situation, what part of yourself do you need to be connecting to? Do you need to be embodying in that moment of time? So that's how it was really showing up for me. So I was wearing that warrior spirit for far too long. And of course, now I still wear that warrior spirit, but I wear it when it's necessary. I don't wear it every single day, because that is exactly what was having an effect on my health. It was having an effect on my relationships because I was completely exhausted. So, and that's how I see it showing up in my female clients a lot, because we live in a culture that tells us that we need to be it all, we need to do it all. And women really work better or more efficiently from a place of being, so connecting to that intuition and then taking action from there, versus men who can just go do and it's not affecting their energy in the same way that it affects women. So that's just kind of a side piece there. So intuition, when you think of intuition in your body, how do you know when it's your intuition? How do you know when it's your ego? So you want to think about the communication in your body. So there's a feedback loop. So there's information that goes from your brain to your body, and then information that goes from your body to your brain. The important thing to note here is that, especially for anyone dealing with mental health issues, and I'm not a mental health professional, but I can speak to this on this particular level, that more of our information comes from our body to our brain. So when we're experiencing, brain fog, when we're experiencing, just depression, when we're experiencing, those thoughts that really grab a hold of us, it's usually actually coming from the body. I can't say always, but more of the information flows that way from the body to the brain. It flows a little less from the brain to the body. But you'll notice with certain thoughts how that shows up in your body. And you'll notice with certain feelings how that shows up in your thoughts. So that's what I mean by that. So it's a feedback loop. The mind and body is connected. I call it a lot of times the body-mind. And that is what you'll see a lot of the scientists in the profession begin to call it. We used to, disconnect it in the sense of, we'd say mind, body, spirit, and that's still out there, but it's really because of this feedback loop and all the information and research and science that's come out, it's really connected. And so you want to think of it, your whole being is connected, but you really want to think about it as one. So you have to address both. And so a lot of the wisdom of your body, so think about your past experiences. Some even say, and I agree, that past life experiences live in your body. So anytime we experience trauma, big or small, then it's going to show up in our body until we release it. And so you can think about animals and how when something terrifying happens to them, you can think of the African jungle, they're able to shake it off. So that's them shaking that trauma out of their body. We haven't learned that as well, and we tend to repress and push it down. So it lives there and it comes out in these spurts, and unless you do work to release it. So it comes out in these spurts. So that's where the wisdom of your body lives. And when you do connect to that intuition, you can follow the pathway to unlocking what that wisdom is trying to tell you. So when we're in our head all the time, we're not connected to our body. So if you're somebody who's just always living up here, you probably feel disconnected a lot of times from your body. You likely feel very disconnected from your heart. What could also be happening too is that our thoughts are magnetic. So that your thoughts might go out and get somewhere, but if you don't see some of it materializing in your reality, like the thoughts that you're thinking, or maybe they're all the negative thoughts you're thinking that materialize in your reality and it's just kind of landing and nothing else happens, it's because you need to get into your body. It's because you need to connect to your heart. Your heart is magnetizing. It is the largest electromagnetic field that we have. So if you're using both your mind and your heart together, so that mind-body connection to create, you're going to have and experience much more ease, joy in your daily life. So it'll feel a lot less stressful. We're all going to experience stress. We're all going to experience challenge, but it's how we know how we work with it. So the dominant narrative that we have when we're up here all the time is what has us hypnotized. So I want you to ask yourself, what am I hypnotized by on a daily basis? Or you can do this throughout the week, make notes to yourself on what is hypnotizing you. That's one place to start. And then notice, okay, when I'm hypnotized, how am I feeling in my body? How am I feeling in my head? What are my thoughts? And that's a way to, when you can connect to how you're feeling in your body, and you can be curious and ask questions like, I feel it showing up in my gut. I feel it showing up in my low back. So this can be a lot of times why we experience tightness or pain. It's because it's actually emotions that are wanting to come up and have you become aware of and actually release. So it can show up in your back. It can show up in maybe a contracted heart, or if you're feeling really good, it can come up in an expanded heart. If it feels sometimes like your throat is shutting, that's where you can know where you have blocks and just start asking questions of, hey, why is this showing up? And it'll probably make you remember, a conversation you had with somebody or, something that came up, and just follow that path. That is your intuition or the wisdom of your body opening you up and trying to help you release these emotions, okay? Because know this, anytime you have an experience, whether it's positive or negative, however you view it, if you actually allow yourself to feel that emotion, then that emotion will move through you in 90 seconds. That is it. So the more you can allow yourself to feel, the more you're going to allow yourself actually to move through your experience with much more ease. Okay? So I'm going to hop into knowing, and I already talked about this a little bit, but knowing where that communication is coming from. So when you're in that head, that's not your intuition. So if you're like thinking things and like, oh, I wonder if that's my intuition, no. You're gonna feel it in your body. It's going to likely show up in your gut. It can show up in your heart. And this is true of all your feelings. So when you're feeling density, so when I think of density, it's like that stuck feeling in your body and you kind of feel weighed down, that's a lot of fear. And so when I talked about this 3D matrix that we're in, and we're moving into this 5D and more light is coming into our bodies, I want you to know too that anytime fear is coming up, it's actually coming up to be released. It's like, I do this sometimes just to like move it out of my body, because and a lot of times we tend to think that fear is this, oh my gosh, I'm not supposed to do that, or oh my gosh, I need to stop in my tracks. But no, the fear comes up to be released and to actually take action through it. The only way you're going to experience clarity, the only way you're going to be able to move through fear is action. You can course correct if it wasn't the action that made you feel the best. There's tons of options out there. So just know that if you're feeling stuck, you're not actually stuck. It's usually a belief that you have, or it's an emotion, fear-based scarcity, lack mentality that's coming up to be released. So you can just like push it out of your field, get it out. You don't need to, it doesn't need to take a long time. It doesn't need, because the other great thing about moving into this 3D matrix, this 3D consciousness, this 3D reality, things are moving much more quickly. So whereas before something might have taken us 3 years or 7 years or 10 years to work through, so to speak, it's moving a lot more quickly now. So you can, you don't have to view it as, if I pay attention to this, it's going to take so long and I don't have time for this. No, you don't have time to fuck around with your bullshit. You don't have time to mess around with your, this exhaustion, this burnout, this way of being that makes you unhappy and is affecting your relationships and is showing up in your body. It's showing up in your thoughts. So feel safe enough. I want you to feel safe enough, because I know many times I have not felt safe in my body. And that's why a lot of times we can't connect to our intuition. It's when we feel unsafe. And trauma does that. But you are safe, and you can feel safe while taking action. You don't have to sit and wait and procrastinate. I know what that's like. Trying to think your way out of something. Thinking your way out of something is not going to work. It's taking action, and you take action at the rate in which makes you feel comfortable. Just take action. No more waiting. This is not a waiting game anymore. Okay? So, trusting. It's really about trusting. And that's another thing that I find in working with my clients. Even though they're overly ambitious and high achievers, there's this lack of trust in self. And I think that we all actually have that within us. You don't learn to trust yourself till you trust yourself. And I think it's part of our, like, if you think of lack and scarcity and fear, that doesn't instill a lot of trust. So it's something that has been programmed within us that we don't need to live by anymore. We can release that just as easy as we can release emotions from our body. So when you know that that's coming up for you, that lack of trust in yourself, you'll likely see it showing up in how you're showing up or not showing up in situations. It's usually showing up in that you're not able to voice. So you might feel like your throat is dry and that you can't speak. You might have that feeling of not being safe in your body. And so the way that you build more trust, build more confidence is taking action, but you want to take that action. Action is the theme today. You want to take that action really from a place of being versus, this is normally what I do, so I'm going to keep doing that. You want to slow down. You want to get curious. You want to ask questions to yourself. You can do a morning check-in. It can take 3 minutes. It can take 5 minutes. It can take 15 minutes, however long you have. If you can check in with yourself, one thing I like to share is checking in with your mind, like what's going on in your head, what's going on in your heart, what's going on in your body. You can do these check-ins at the beginning of the day. You can do it 3 times a day. You can put an alarm on your phone. I can give you so many things you could do, which I don't think you need at this point, but it's just to remind you to slow down. Get out of warrior mode, get out of warrior mentality so that you can connect inward. So your intuition is all about connecting inward. And when we do that, we can harmonize. So it can reduce our stress, for one. It can reduce our anxiety. It can reduce those feelings of depression and stuckness that we all experience. But it also harmonizes the masculine energy within us, because we all have masculine and feminine energy within us. The masculine is the structure, and I think of the spine, so the structure. And the feminine is that intuition and flow. And so when we're all connected into our intuition, males and females alike, and we're all taking action from that place, just imagine for a minute what earth that would create. That is a new earth. That is doing things from a place of love. That is doing things from a place of trusting self and being in trust that when you are taking action from that place, it has a ripple effect onto other people. The more you can trust self, speak your truth, act from your truth, then that shifts everybody into where they're supposed to be, what they're supposed to be doing, versus when we're trying to attack it from the outside in, and then we're not feeling like everything feels, that's how I describe it. And then we try to figure out what's going on, what we did wrong. We take it all to mean something about ourselves, and we did it wrong, and just all this stuff. You know, the stuff. It just feels heavy and dense and So the more you can slow down, the more you can hear your intuition, the more you begin to take action from a place that's true to you, and take action from that highest self part of you, that has a ripple effect onto everyone else. That is what creates this consciousness, this unity of love, this new earth that we're walking into. Because it is happening now, whether you know it or not. You might be experiencing it in certain ways that you're not aware of. If this is the first time you're hearing somebody speak like this, and it's likely showing up in density in your body, or you might be seeing things collapse before you. I mean, turn on the news and you see that all the time. But maybe situations in your life are collapsing and you're like, why? Because it's not a truth. That's why. So getting back on track a little bit to intuition and the warrior spirit and this physical part of us, what the warrior really needs, the warrior's medicine, is really what I've found for myself is to be things that aren't so structured. The warrior moves in a very structured way, lives in a very structured way. And when you can shift out of that structure, whatever that looks like for you, where you're structured or experiencing too much structure and you want to shift out of that. A lot of times I actually hear people describe it that way when we're on the phone together. They'll say, I just want a place in my life where I'm not structured. That is because you're not tapping into yourself. You're not tapping into your truth. You're not trusting your truth. You're not trusting yourself. You're living from that doing. You're living from being hypnotized by everyone else's wants and needs. You're hypnotized by doing it perfectly. You're likely comparing yourself to other people. So the medicine there of this warrior spirit is finding more, or not, it's becoming more unstructured. That's how I'll say it. So that's in movement, that's in your energy. You can tell when you're showing up in this, like, things have to be done this certain way. Okay. And you don't need that on every playing field of your life. If you're bringing that in your relationship, that's a place to find less structured. It's a place to become more unstructured. So allow yourself to look in to where you can make these shifts. And I promise that as a result, you'll feel more energy, you'll feel more strength, you'll feel more aliveness, okay, from inside out. And since we are the projectors of our reality, you are the creator of your reality, you'll see things shift around you. You'll see relationships shift around you. Tomorrow I'm going to do more of a deep dive into our energy, our frequency, our vibration, and how that affects people and things as we create our reality. Let me see if anything else wants to come through. Start showing up as who you want to be. That is the easiest way to make the shift into this 5D matrix, to leave behind fear, scarcity, lack mentality, and shift more into a heart, living from your heart. You know who that is. You're likely being called by your higher self to step into that role. It might feel scary, and that's okay. You're likely going to be triggered along the way, and that's okay. It's all part of the process. It's all part of the process. But the more you can listen to that, listen to your intuition, connect to your body, embody what you believe and who you are and who you want to be, you actually already are that person. It's just being that person all the time and not wearing the mask of the warrior on every playing field of life. You will begin energizing the timeline that you want to step into, and the other timelines of scarcity, lack, fear, all the things that feel dense and heavy will begin collapsing. Okay? So I invite you, if this message resonates with you, put your favorite emoji below. If you're catching the replay, then let me know you're here. And tomorrow I will be back at 6 p.m. because I have clients I need to work around as I do this series, and I'll be talking about energy, your frequency, your vibration, energy consciousness, and how this all plays into your health, your body, and really getting hooked on the true story of your body. So again, if this resonates, please reach out, put your favorite emoji below. You can reach out to me by DM. You can say warrior, and I will begin the conversation with you. All right? I will talk to you all soon. Bye.